Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Striving to Thriving show. And I am so excited to be here to have my guest host, Therese Skelly, and her panelists. And we're going to be talking about how we have had to redefine success in our lives. And I'm your host, Barbara Ellison. I'm founder of Wellness Playroom for the best version of you. So, welcome everybody. We look forward to having you on the show. Please feel free to send comments, and let's bring Teresa back.
I was wandering in the yard.
We love technology. Anyway, so welcome everybody. Therese, take it away.
Hello, my loves. Hello, hello. So I am Therese Skelly, and I am the intuitive business mentor. And so what I do is I help women just break through the barriers that they don't know how to access so they can have great lives. And today I'm so thrilled to invite an amazing, amazing, amazing panel of guests today. So how about we just go around, just like 30-second commercial, a little bit about who you are, what you do. And I'll start with Priscilla.
Hi, everyone. I'm Priscilla Stephan. I live in Northern California, and I work with soul-driven visionary leaders who are looking to realize what they're really meant to do, the pinnacle of their purpose in their work. Despite any previous successes, there's more for them to do.
Nice. And you live in, so what's really cool about this show, everybody's international. It's wild. There's like two of us, like, US born people, and it's so cool. And I didn't plan on that, but I'm curious because the differences in cultures and countries and experiences, you're going to have like kind of a different experience, right? So Priscilla, tell them like where you're from and where you're living now.
I live in Northern California now. I was born in Brazil, raised in London and New York.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Anke.
Well, I'm Anke Herrmann. I'm originally from Germany, and after living in Australia, in the UK, I've been based in the south of Spain for the last little bit over 20 years. And I work with coaches and educators, and I help them turn their passion into a boutique business. And a boutique business is, small, specialized. It offers freedom and ease through offering a leveraged boutique offer. And I'm crazy about dogs.
You are. So we're going to hear them, I'm sure, in the background, right? So hopefully,
perhaps,
I don't know.
I'm going to mute myself.
We connected on the dog thing. Yeah, we had a podcast, and we're like, oh, dogs. All right. Let's see. Jennifer Regular.
Hello. Yes, Jennifer Regular from the west coast of Canada. I'm Canadian born with South African roots. And I'm a digital nomad, so I'm really all over the place. But this is where I'm joining you today. And through Lighting the Path, I'm guiding visionary entrepreneurs and natural born leaders and business owners back into alignment with their true passion. Their true passion. It's not just an energy, it's actually a calling. For example, when you break up the word passion, it's pass I on. That I being your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. And so I connect people with that, and that's how I've become known as the Soul Illuminator.
Yes. All right, Linzi.
Hi everybody, so I'm Linzi and I am based in Scotland, so I need to remind myself to speak really slowly because we do go really fast. No one will understand what I'm saying. So I'm slowing down tonight for you guys. So I help women emotionally heal from separation or divorce, and I empower them to really rebuild a future that is bigger and better than they could ever have dreamed of. Probably like all of us, I've had my fair share of challenges and moments when I just wasn't sure if I was going to get through life. But looking back, those tough times have really turned out to be some of my greatest teachers. They didn't break me. Those moments actually built me. And those really tough times have actually built my business for me as a divorce coach. So I've taken what felt like the biggest disaster of my life, my divorce, and really transformed it into something that is empowering to myself and to all the women I work with. So yeah, I just love how I've turned pain into purpose, really.
Yeah. Well, this talk is about from surviving to thriving, and your story is magnificent. I think we all have that story. So hang in, listeners, because you're going to hear our stories, right? And there's comments. There's a comment section. If you're watching live, jump in the comments. We would love to. We'll interact with you. We just if you have questions, so jump in. All right, I'm going to go to Jennifer Rogers.
Hello, I am Jennifer Rogers. I am from Norman, Oklahoma. So a lot of times people want to know what that accent is, and it's Oklahoma. So, and I call myself an empowerment coach because I kind of work in two different realms. I work with leadership development and coaching on the corporate side. And then I work in the spiritual side, helping those tap into their spiritual selves. And you'll hear my story later and how I tapped into that myself.
Beautiful, beautiful. And dear Barbara, share who you are. Our hostess with the mostest, so share who you are.
Yeah, hi, I'm Barbara Ellison, founder of Wellness Playroom for the best version of you. And I love the fact that I can work with people to get into retirement so that they can face retirement and thrive in retirement rather than just survive it. So I'm so excited to be here. And this is a great, I love the conversation.
This is going to be good. Well, I forgot to say, I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm sorry, I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm a native of Arizona, and I have the skin damage to prove all that. But there's not a lot of natives, and so the way we're gonna roll with this, the concept is, here you are, you're in your life, and there's survival things that are happening, and there's a backstory, right? You have a backstory. So we're gonna actually do 3 rounds of these conversations, and so. My backstory is I was raised in a really badly alcoholic, chaotic, abusive, terrible home. Why do you think I became a counselor, right? So I was raised where my needs weren't taken advantage, nobody took care of me, basically. So I became needless. And I became this person that was like, what can I do to make everybody else happy? That was my backstory. I got my worth. Obviously, I was a therapist. By fixing others and being selfless, and that's not really that sustainable. It's not sustainable. Newsflash, that doesn't fly very long. And I've had a few different moments in time, and I was just telling my aunt recently, like, I couldn't receive because it wasn't safe to receive, right? So for me, I was like, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. Like, I'm queen of my universe. And this one time, I think my husband at the time he had a drug problem, and I was in such wretched shape. And this woman in my office, her therapist, and she sat me down. She goes, "What's wrong?" I think he had overdosed, or he was, whatever shit was happening. And she said, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm fine. Everything's fine, just fine." I was maybe 28, and she was old. She was 45. She was like an older woman with a Southern accent, and you don't mess with them, right?
No, you don't.
You do not, right? Like a 40-year-old Southern woman, God. And so I remember she sat me in my office, and I'm literally like, "I'm fine." And she literally sat me down on the ground and wrapped her. Her name was Jan, and she wrapped her. Literally, she held me hostage. She wrapped herself around me. She said, you're not fine, sugar. You're not fine. And in that moment, it all crumbled because I had never had somebody literally having my back. She had to take me hostage for me to go, oh, I can drop this act. And that started the story of me going, whoa, I don't have to hold it all. I don't have to do it all. Mm-hmm. And so that was such a pivotal thing because I didn't know I could rely on anybody. And when my little Southern friend just captured me, I'm not exaggerating, she tackled me on the floor. And so that started a journey of allowing in, connecting with God, allowing more women to hold me and nurture me, and expanded my ability to receive. And so that's where I'll start my backstory. And so I want to just share, like, in a couple minutes, what's your backstory? We'll just have a conversation about this because I think so many women probably raise your hand if you can relate to that one, right? Mm-hmm. So who else wants to share their backstories? Yeah, Priscilla.
I think in the theme of surviving to thriving, the thread throughout everything was proving forced to have a sense of worth. And that proving came, success was pretty much everything. And that there was a toll on the body, right? Most of us tend to realize the body will break down, will get louder. And I was probably 44 when I had my first bout with severe burnout. I couldn't get up off the bed. The thing I always was able to count on was my drive. I'm just the Energizer Bunny. Therese, you know this about me. I set the tone. We're going, right? And I couldn't get up. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't function. And it was a holy shit moment, because it became that question of, Therese, if it was like, if it's me, if I want to do it, it's all on me. For me, it was, if I don't have my drive, I can't succeed. If I can't succeed, then to what you were saying, Barbara, then who am I? And I couldn't rely on my drive. And it had cracked me open, not only to deepening my understanding of what adrenal fatigue and burnout really meant on a deeper level. It started to open my idea of what a relationship to my body and to nourishing myself really meant, what thriving and success meant beyond labels. And if I'm not worthy because of something external, how do I find worthiness internally? And it got me on a path to really getting healthy sustainably, both inside spirit-wise, body-wise, and the whole shebang.
That's so good. So good. We're all like, sister, I did the same thing. Like, oh my. Who's next? Who wants to share?
You see the heads nodding.
Yeah. We're like, we're all salivating on this. So
yeah. I related to that on the bed moment, for sure. Absolutely. 100% completely depleted and drained. And I got there because I wasn't living in alignment with my true values and who I thought I was. I allowed society to determine my destiny, essentially. I went to school and studied, and then I got married, and then had a husband and house and kids and garden and all those things that I never actually wanted. Well, school was interesting to me, but the other conventional pieces weren't really in alignment with who I was and what I wanted to be doing out into the world, actually. And that marriage was very destructive and showed me all the ways that it was out of alignment and how I was not living the potential or not being in integrity of my own values and intentions for the world. And so that depleted my energy, depleted my drive. I was lying in bed after I had left my husband thinking, life was over at that point. And then, just staring at the ceiling, not having a vision. And like a visionary without a vision is like a death. It's akin to death, right? And my biggest fear was not being able to live my full potential and what I felt I was called into this world to do. And so then there was like this energy bolt. It was almost like a lightning bolt where I just jolted up in my seat. And that's when that download about passion came in, that perspective of passing I on, that we're our soul's expression of what we're here to pass on. And but it took me a journey, to recover myself, to actually be myself. And so I went through years on a spiritual journey to be able to recover myself, to actually be myself. And I'm so grateful for all the blessings that came through that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
The things that we think we want, that we're like, oh, what's wrong with me that I'm not thrilled with all that?
Yeah.
So, who's next?
I'll jump in because my story is a little bit related to Jennifer's, and it's quite impactful on the marriage. So when I was 40, I had ticked every box that I thought success meant. So I was a stay-at-home mum. I loved being a stay-at-home mum with my 3 children. I'd been married for 16 years. We lived in a beautiful house. We did all the lovely family holidays. And on the outside, everything looked perfect. And after 16 years of marriage, I woke up one morning to an email from my husband telling me that he was leaving me. And
email.
Oh,
an email.
Mm.
16 years, it's a classic, isn't it? I honestly thought like my entire world had ended. My whole identity was tied up to being a wife and a mum. That's all I had been. I had zero career prospects. I had no savings. I had a ton of debt. My name wasn't even on our mortgage. And the thought of going back into the workforce on a minimum wage, I had no childcare. Like, it was just utterly terrifying. And then you add in the big broken heart into the mix, and it was a shit show, basically. Just completely terrified of the future and overwhelmed. I was really struggling to manage all the really different emotions and reactions that were coming from friends and family, and their very well-meaning advice as well. I just felt there was no room in my brain to work through like the major life decisions that had to be made like really quickly while you're in that highly emotive state. It's such a really fast emotional roller coaster, and I think I was just grieving for my entire life. Like, the past felt it had all been a lie, and then the future felt like it was all lost, and I just didn't put myself. I just felt completely lost from it all. So that's my kind of backstory.
Wowza. And fast forward, girlfriend, tell them about the award you won in Scotland. Tell them about, because I know you're very humble, but because, okay, hold on. Women, are you the kind that are like, let's talk about what good I did? Like, I'm the like we don't brag, but I just want to give little Linzi, because this is like, what? So you heard the backstory, and now just share the award.
So fast forward from being a stay-at-home mum with no career prospects, and on Friday I have just been awarded a Scottish Women in Business Award for a certificate of commendation for my business. So I'm very, very proud of that. Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, I was celebrating the heck out of that one.
I knew you would.
Love that. So see if you're listening, and for all of us too, like, we don't know what's possible. And it's just, we could talk for hours on all of us, in a minute, we're going to talk about how we made a decision, but it's like that decision to jump in to do something else, into the unknown, the scary, and where it leads, and the faith and the trust and all that stuff. So your story is perfect for that. All right, Anke, Jennifer, who's going next?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay, Anke first.
Well, all right.
Go.
Well, I grew up in East Germany, so behind the East German wall, and it always felt as if it was like a punishment, as if that was like really unlucky. Why couldn't I have just been born like a few hundred kilometers further this way? And it was a society where you grew up, and a little bit similar to what Therese was saying, like, what I wanted didn't matter. Like, nobody cared. I think even parents weren't that nurturing, like what you see parents now. And it was like, you just function and you get onto your go to school and you get a job, and then that's kind of what your life is. And when I got out, well, that's a story for another day, but I got out before the wall came down and ended up living in Australia, and discovered that whole the freedom that comes with the entrepreneurial possibilities, and to be able, hey, I actually can control what's, where my life is going and how this all plans out. And I got myself into the software industry, and really, right in the 90s, and it was all booming, and it was just, it was like a whole new world, and really took to it, moved to London, and all of a sudden I noticed like things were changing. It wasn't quite the way, like the whole bubble had burst, and all of a sudden there weren't that many jobs around. And I remember feeling like so vulnerable, and very much, Therese, like what you were saying, it's like I was used to, okay, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, right? So, and that sense of I have no control. This feels like a giant fairy where I'm sitting fairly comfortable, but anytime a wave can wash me overboard, I can see the iceberg, and there's nothing I can do about it, because nobody's going to listen to me. And the sense of vulnerability that came with that, and discomfort, was pretty massive. And in the end, I did jump over the rail.
We're going to hear that
the next one, right?
Yeah, the next one. Yeah. I can't even imagine, we have all the family of origin stuff, but when you have a whole country that is suppressive and harsh, and do you know what I mean? It's such a fascinating how that would be. Are you following with that? I'm like, how do you get raised in that? Jeez, well, that's why you left. So, all right, Jennifer Love, Jennifer R, the other Jennifer R. So,
I like what you said first, Jennifer Love. I'll take that.
Jennifer
right.
Love. Yeah,
just change it for me. I don't know what my husband will think about that, but
all right, it
doesn't matter. He's outvoted here. So I'm going to take my backstory further back than what has been shared today. I'm going to go back to the age of 5. Because you really have to know what I went through to see the woman here today with you. And from the age of about 4 is when it first started. I was sexually abused. And the abuse started consistently from age 5 to 8. And, all the things that an abuser will tell you is what was whispered into my ear in the darkest nights. But it wasn't until my body developed an infection that I had to bring this dirty little secret to life, right? And so when I came down the stairs that morning and shared with my mom what had been going on, we didn't have a phone at that time. We were very poor, no phone, one vehicle, lucky if it ran. And he was gone that morning. And so my mom takes me next door to the neighbor's house. We use their phone. She calls the police. They arrive, take me to the hospital. And I can tell you today the outfit I had on, and I can tell you I can still hear and feel those scissors going up my little 8-year-old legs, cutting those clothes from my body. And you would think that the state at that time, they've confirmed what's going on. They're going to step in and they're going to be your savior. But that doesn't happen. They take my mother and I right back to the home. And my mom is reliant fully financially, emotionally, what she thinks is love from this person, right? And so we stay in the home that we're in for just a little while longer. And then we move to a smaller home. And that next part of the story is where I'll share with you what changed. Because it wasn't the state or the police department that played a role in removing me from that situation.
She's just set up a cliffhanger for us. Well, stay tuned. This is good marketing. See, you got to stay tuned to hear the rest. Yeah, it's funny. Does anybody want to share anything as we're kind of like just laying out background stories? Does anybody have anything, quick observation or shared like, whoa, I see this in you. I see that. I saw that in me.
I think when Anke was sharing part of her story and she mentioned that she felt as though everything was kind of out of her control, and that's exactly how I felt as well. Like it was like everything was happening to me. And I mean, in a way it was like my finances, I had to apply for benefits and I was out of control as to when those benefits were getting paid. My husband had signed up for annual contracts on things that I had to keep fulfilling. I hadn't really any control over what jobs I was going to get because I had no childcare, and you just feel so completely powerless in those moments. And I think it's really important to try and focus on, whilst you can't control the outside circumstances, you can control how you're going to respond to those circumstances. And I think all the other women here today have really proven that that's exactly what they did. They took control over how they were going to respond to it.
Beautiful. Barbara, did you want to say something? And then we'll move on.
One of the things I think that really struck me about all the stories, and several of you said that they knew exactly where they were, what they were wearing, and I can tell you exactly where I was the moment that I woke up from my widow's fog and realized, after my husband had passed away, and realized that I had no idea of who I was outside of all the labels that I had put on myself, of being that daughter and wife and mother, and then a divorced failure, and then a successful wife again, and then a grandmother and a business owner, and now I'm a widow. Who am I?
Right.
And in that, and I think part of the journey, my journey started then when I realized that for the first 61 years of my life, I had been living by somebody else's rules, not mine.
Raise your hand if you've ever done that one. Right. Oh, Lordy. Okay. So,
oh, yeah.
Now we're going to go on decisions. We're going to share how, because here's the thing, you can be aware of something, but until you decide that you will no longer have that, I'm not accepting this, I'm not available, I'm going to open up to, and you don't even have to know the what, right? When Linzi talked about her journey, we've all had that, I don't know where this is going. So I'll share a little bit of mine. So I was married, and I would have stayed. I love my husband. We were lovely friends. We were like best friends. And he had drug and alcohol problems off and on, but it's a paradox because he was a great man. He was a phenomenal man. Just everybody adored him. And I was mainly focused on raising my kids. I had a little part-time business because I wanted to focus on the kids. And we were together 18 years, and I would have stayed because that's what you do when you're a mom with kids. You stay, right? You suffer a little bit, you let things go. And so for me, I didn't get a text, Linzi. There might have been some signs that perhaps my relationship was going south. And so he left me. And I was so like, wait, what? I didn't think I could raise my two kids by myself. I was making $40,000 a year. You're not going to raise a family of two, boys. So strangely, what happened, I think I decided, but I didn't. So I made a decision that I didn't know I was making. Okay. So I have a master's degree in counseling, and my background is I actually have a degree in criminal justice. I was a prison guard. And now what in that screams business? There's nothing in there that screams you should be a business coach. And so I saw an ad in 2002 or 3 for business coaches wanted. I didn't even know what Excel was. It used to be a phone company, right? I knew nothing. And yet literally my soul is on the keyboard filling out an application. And the next day I'm like, shit, I interview well. I'm now a business coach. What do I do? I didn't know anything. And so I decided, so that's the curious part, is my soul, like I was ready for the next, but I, in my little brain, could not figure out because I had no idea. And so for me, the decision was follow the prompting of my soul, put the little floaties like we do with children and just jump in the water and be thrown about. And so that one, I literally say that one decision, more than marrying, more than my children, that decision changed the trajectory of my life in ways that were unimaginable to me. Right. And so with the decision, something, know what I'm saying is you don't have to know the exact path. You just have to be yes to the next. So that's my decision start. Who else? Aren't these fun cliffhangers? Like, let's get back to it. Okay, who's jumping in? So.
I'll jump in.
Okay, Linzi,
go ahead, Linzi.
Linzi, then Priscilla.
Quite a lot of kind of marriage things going on here, so I just it kind of makes sense. So my cliffhanger was I was just left in a mess in the bathroom floor, sort of thing. But I think the sort of moment that I decided things were going to change is, like I say, I felt as though like my past had been a lie and the future had been kind of ripped from under me. And I knew that I had to really focus on the present. And I just had such a turning point that every single thought I was having during that time was about my ex. I was so focused on him. Yeah. And I was not focusing on myself. And it was draining me of every ounce of energy kind of thing. So once I sort of changed my focus to myself, I knew that that's when I had to kind of concentrate on building a future, some kind of future. And like Therese said, I didn't know what that future was going to be. But when I was experiencing divorce, what I discovered was there was so much help out there for the sort of legal side of it. So you could Google, what document to fill out, what questions to ask your lawyer, but there really wasn't any support out there for your emotional well-being. And there was nothing to help you get your mindset to support you instead of holding you back. And this kind of little light bulb went off for me. And it was just like, right, if there's nothing out there, and I know that this is what I need, this must be what other women need as well. So how the hell do I go about creating that? And I still had a big question mark over it all. But I ended up going back to university at the same time as my 16-year-old daughter. So she was utterly mortified by this. It was great. One of my finest parenting moments.
Yeah.
I went back to uni. I studied counselling, and I also got 3 other qualifications in that 1 year as well.
Oh my.
And I just knew that I wanted to create some kind of community for women with sort of resources for their mindset, tools and tips and strategies. And everything just started coming together. It was just magical. And when I look at my life now, like, it's so not what I thought it would be. Like I said at the start, success to me, I thought I had it all at age 40. Like, I thought I had a perfect life. And to the outside, I did. But back then, I think success looked to me as if I was keeping everything together, keeping up this facade, making sure things looked perfect. And it wasn't until my marriage ended that I realised that success is so much more than like the outside appearance. It's about really living authentically and doing what lights you up and finding your own happiness, even when that means you're starting over, you're skint. I had no money at the start. I had no nice it was just and I just felt that losing that traditional family unit was such a failure at that time. Like, it was the biggest failure I could ever imagine. And now when I look at the family unit that we've created, so it's not quite that lovely circle that I always thought it was going to be. There's lots of little points coming out and triangles, and there've been people added in, and there've been people that's left. But now it's not about it looking perfect on the outside. It's just about having growth and fulfillment and connection in that family unit. And
okay, hold on. We're gonna keep going. Want to make sure we have enough time, darling. So I love that. Thank you. We're going to hear part 3 in the other part. So save the thriving story. So Priscilla, because we have like 9 more minutes of this part, so I want to get everybody in. So.
I will be as brief as I can. So I was in the living room in our small apartment in San Diego when I realized I can't get out of bed. This isn't changing. I don't know what to do. And so there was both the physical and then there was the emotional part of this. The physical part was that I found a holistic nutritionist that really helped me with the supplements and understanding adrenal fatigue and what caused me to burn out, what burnout was. I was so tired and so exhausted, I actually couldn't even go on the computer to Google yin yoga or restorative yoga. My husband had to find a place so I could actually go and do that. And there were deeper questions that had to, I remember, like you were saying, Jennifer, regular about alignment. I remember this is so out of alignment. The way I was doing business, I felt like there was nothing left of me. I had nothing to show for it, and it had taken everything I'd given. But I'd made the decision that I was willing to give no matter what, no matter the cost. Right? And so I had to define and go out and explore what sustainability and sustainable success meant and who I was. So the questions of who am I? What am I no longer willing to sacrifice or tolerate, right? Because the standards were pretty low for how much I was willing to sacrifice, which is pretty high bar. And to go on a journey of, if I'm going to make this last, what needs to change? And so that was a slow 6-month process to get out of that hole. And I had to be okay with being in the present moment and not knowing and trusting and having faith and reconfiguring what alignment and self-expression and success meant, because I wasn't willing, I couldn't afford to go back there, nor did I want to. So it was that decision, there's got to be a better way than this, surely. And I'm not willing to tolerate or to throw myself under the bus or my well-being, because clearly this is not a great place to hang out. You can't just step out of burnout. That was the hard part that I had to learn.
Yeah. I just love, though, we're if you're listening, audience, you're hearing the roadmap for how to do this, right? So you decide, you don't know that what, you just say yes to the thing. And I love, Priscilla, your point about what am I not willing to tolerate? What am I not willing? Right. So, and Linzi just like, okay, sure, I'll go back to college. So this is the roadmap. So if you're sitting here in kind of a place, let's just take the clues. Take the clues. They're right here. All right. Who's next? Your decision story in 2 minutes.
All right, I think I could do that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm lying in that bed and I'm thinking of the self-sacrifice and sacrificing my home, my marriage, the dogs, the garden, even having to claim bankruptcy, like losing all of that. And at the expense, because sacrifice, the original meaning is to make sacred. And I didn't want that for myself anymore. I didn't want that for my future. And so that was making the sacrifice to make sacred who I was becoming, who I yet to become, the part of me that I didn't yet know, and to be able to create a future out of that, right? And so I went on a journey, a very healing journey, having to regain my energy, my perspective, my mindset, all of those things. But then I had to put out a website when I decided that I wanted to offer everything I just learned to everyone else. And that was scary because there were threats on my life from my husband. And if I put myself out there in public, what's that about? But what I learned through that is that there's a purpose-driven courage that's deeper than any kind of fear that's an untruth, right? Of something that we believe can hold us back, a limitation, a very scary limitation.
Yeah.
But I had been so driven and trusted so much and had faith of what I was meant to be here for, that I allowed that to happen. But that moment of uncertainty when I had first left and I'm literally didn't know where I was going to go, how things were going to turn out. And I just got in my car. I decided I'm not doing this anymore and went to the stop sign and just sat there. I'm like, literally didn't know whether to go left or right. I couldn't go ahead because it was the end of the road.
Your cliff note would be you just trust that something is greater and you move into that. And I love the sacrifice turning to sacred. Okay, Jennifer, Anke. Thank you, Jennifer R. Anke. Oh, you're muted, honey. You're muted.
Unmute, that won't work. So yeah, I was there in my software developer job thinking, I don't want to be here when I'm 50 sending out resumes for programmer's job. And so something needed to change. And so at the same time, I had been studying Spanish and got hooked on the whole world of flamenco in Spain. And every time I took a trip, I didn't want to go back. So there was this thought, I would just want to live there. So what would that look like? What if I really did that? And I remember, and this is my moment where I know exactly what I was wearing and what I was doing, where I thought, if I really moved to Spain, what would I do? And literally, like you were saying, like it's the first time I ever actually asked myself that. And I was like 37 or 39 or something, and thought, well, actually, there's some flamenco music playing. I've got a fluffy, flowery, roughly dress that I'm cutting on my dining table. Yeah, I would go and have a small boutique custom dressmaking business in the south of Spain. Okay,
and
what could possibly go wrong? And there was literally, well, okay, that sounds a bit crazy, but what could go wrong? And I'm like, there's no showstopper. There's no I can't just decide to be a doctor just because I want to.
Right.
But dressmaking I can do, right? So there wasn't really any kind of practical showstopper. And I'm like, you know what?
So
we'll just go have that to go. Because I wanted it out of my system. I didn't care whether it worked out or not. I wanted it out of my system.
Love it. I brought the crazies on today. The crazy women just following spirit and inspiration. Okay. So here's what we do. We're going to do Jennifer Rogers, your decision, and then we're going to really fast do one little tiny 30-second, 45-second pivot story. Is that okay, Barbara, in terms of the time?
Absolutely.
Okay, Jennifer Rogers, decision.
So when I was taken back into the home, we moved to a different house. But just because you move doesn't mean that the abuse stops, right? It changes. And so that's what I experienced. And I love that everybody here says, I listened, I paid attention. And at 8 years old, that was the first time I heard spirit or felt spirit in my body. I had seen things before, but when I felt it. And when I tell you this, I tell you that I came home down the alleyway that day. So imagine yourself, we've all been 8-year-old little girls, and you're walking in your little tiny shoes and your backpack that's too big for you. And I see my home, and that car is gone. And there was something in me, and this is what I'm saying, Spirit spoke to me that knew my mother was gone and he was home. And I was like, I'm not going home today. And so I'm in the alleyway, and instead of turning left to go home, I turned right, and at 8 years old, ran away for my own freedom.
Yeah, you chose yourself.
I chose myself. I chose myself.
Wow. Oh, that's another part of this process, is listening to Spirit, like listening. Okay, the next question is, how did you pivot? I'm going to tell you a really quick pivot story. I was kind of a mama bear. I still am, but I was when my children were like 6 years ago. I met my partner Scott. It was Christmas, and we had this like wild little courtship over Christmas. And so that 6 years ago, John would have been 19, Danny would have been 23, 20. So they were adults, right? And so Scott and I had this like fast and furious thing, and he's like, "We should do a staycation." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Spend a week with me." Okay. So previously, my whole life was focusing on taking care of their kids, because their dad was up and down, and my whole identity was, I have to make sure my kids are okay. And I will never forget. So I packed my little bag. I'm like, what do you guys need? I'm going to be gone for the week. Now, again, John's home from college. This is Christmas holidays. And I bought him a whole bunch of alcohol, and I bought a bunch of food. And it was such a weird, this moment of like, unpack. I did feel like, the walk of shame, where I'm like, okay, lads, I'm off. Guess what mama's doing, But in that moment, because there was the wretched mom part of me that's like, how can I leave my children for 4 nights, whatever? And I'm like, you have to leave your children for 4 nights. It's your time. This is your time. You moving forward, they're on their path. They're okay. They're adults. This is your time. And I pivoted into, I focus on joy. I focus on what nourishes me. And so it was such a weird, literally like with my little bag rolling across the kitchen going, And I remember it so clearly, because it was such a hard choice. But I had to make that choice about me, about my love, my life, my restoration. So, okay, 1 minute. Restoration or pivot stories.
I'll share mine for a second.
Yes.
One of the things that I did was, I had to learn. So, well, guess what you do? You sign up, you get a coach, and you go to events. And I went to an event called a Millionaire Mind Intensive because I needed money. I needed to learn how to make money. Well, what I learned in there was all the personal development stuff. And I can tell you, I was sitting there on this first day. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. The second day, it was like, Barbara, this is what you want to do. You want to teach others what you've had to learn for yourself, who you are within what you do. Because so often people get it backwards, that they think that if they do this, they're going to have that. And then once they have that, they're going to become this. It has to be the backward. It has to be the first. You have to be who you are first, because then once you are who you're supposed to be, then you're going to do the things that you're called to do. That spirit, that knowing, you're in the right place, doing the right things with the right people. And then you're going to have everything that you want.
Yeah, beautiful.
Financially, spiritually, everything. And that was in that moment, sitting in that class going, this is what I want to do. I want to have others do what I've done.
Boom. I love that. Who else?
So,
I'll go next.
Okay, go ahead.
So recovered. I had been introduced to restorative yoga, which is yin, very relaxing yoga. And so really the journey to success had meant my body had gone under the bus, and I was an emotional eater for 3 decades. I gained and lost 30 pounds almost every year for 3 decades. And finally, with the help of a coach, I was able to learn to feel my feelings, right? Because striving is a way to avoid feelings. We fostered a dog for a year, Mojo, and walking the dog, and the decision that I would feel radiant. That was my core desired feeling. I wish to feel radiant and strong. And then I came upon formerly known as Bikram yoga, which I never thought I would like. And I began to find my outer strength and my inner sense of strength and health and well-being kind of merge. And that also allowed me to feel better about myself and more confident in how I presented myself and just more holistically whole, right, through the whole healing journey. And at 50, I feel better than I ever have.
You look fabulous.
And I've kept the weight off most much. So it was a journey of reclaiming my own partnership to myself and my body and choosing and prioritizing me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Nice. Yeah, really good. Okay, who's next? 1 minute. Quick story of pivot.
I'll go.
Go, Linzi.
I think what I had to try and really change was I was such a perfectionism. Like I really I was the mum at the school gates that always had their hair done and their makeup done, presented this facade that, you know, everything was always really, really perfect. And when I started my business, I had to be so willing to be so far from perfect. Like I failed continuously, and I still do to this day. And I think I've had to really learn acceptance of not being perfect at things. And this journey has really, this journey through having a business has really taught me that. I mean, even when I try and go on social media, my teenagers just completely hysterical how badly I feel at that. So, but it's just getting okay with that and learning that, you know, every failure is teaching you something. I think that's been my biggest sort of pivot in it all.
Oh, that's so good. So good. Yeah, that whole perfection and that persona is shame and a false self. And so the authenticity of, I didn't get it right is close, you know, so good. Who's next? Your pivot story in 1 minute.
Yeah, well, I find that everything comes from the decision, right? To make that decision, and that decision comes from the belief and the conviction, and then the intentional action that goes along with it. I learned about alignment, that integrity, coming back into harmony with my body, mind, and spirit, and then realizing through Realize that it's when I freed my spirit, that allowed me to direct the life that I was meant to live. And so that spiritual journey really amplified the kind of impact I was able to have based on being able to free my spirit to direct the life that I meant to live. And being in integrity of those values, right? And what's really meant for me. Yeah.
I could listen to you all day and your beautiful wisdom. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, Anke. Ooh, I kicked my computer. Anke.
Yeah, so I moved to Spain with this idea, let's just start a Soviet sewing business. How hard could it be? Well, you know, as you can imagine, it sort of went up and down. What I didn't realize that it was going to be a crash course in personal growth, because it wasn't about making collars or sewing techniques or getting clients that was difficult. It was actually learning how to say no. And at some point I realized that until you face your own stuff, you can't ever really be successful in business. And the other part I learned is about money and charging and value, because I realized that I built a lot of the boutique business I had in mind when I first started. But if you have a limit on capacity and you don't charge a lot, you burn yourself out. And that's basically what I did. And I did catch it, and I did manage to turn around. But then there was like, hey, I don't want to be here when I'm 60 and can't see it.
Arthritis is setting in. Yeah.
Pivot. And I want to take the tech background, everything I've learned over 15 years in that building that business out of nothing, and want to use that to help other people build their business that they don't want to scale it. Like, you want to have ease and freedom and do it your way, but you don't want to have this big machinery with hiring people and building this corporate thing. So it's almost that third path where, you know, it's slick, it's elegant, it's leveraged, and it's possible. And
we're going to go to Jennifer. We're going to go to Jennifer. So
what I'm here for now.
In a minute, we're going to put everybody's contact information, and I'm going to have you guys tell where you can be found, because who doesn't want that? And Anke's genius. I work with Anke. She's helping me with some business things. So, all right, Jennifer, drum roll. Finish your story, girl, in 77 seconds.
You got it. So we all go through life. Therese, you said you had a criminal justice degree. Linzi went for education. That was my pathway out as well, was education. I didn't, the state of Oklahoma can put me in any category or statistic that they want, but I get to choose if that's where I reside. And I was like, that's not my address. I don't live there. You can say what you want. And so I too, Therese, have a degree in criminal justice. And that's not what I do today, but it is funny that you choose that path, because who didn't stand up for you? And that's where I'm at today, is I use my voice to help those that don't have a voice or they've been quietened. And I speak out affirmations. I lead my own women's group. I'm part of other groups. But the one thing I know, whether we've met or not, is that we've all been through some shit. Every one of us, whether it's trauma shit or it's success, you go through it. And so I have changed the word shit to somehow I thrived.
Boom.
That's how we get through life.
Well, that wraps it up perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly. Right. Nice. Barbara, before we move on to the next person, do you want to share anything else? I'll give you the last word about pivots and anything else you want to share.
Yeah, this has been just such a wonderful conversation. So we'll just, we'll leave it at that for right now, and then I'll end the show later on after I hear everybody. Yeah, just put in your information and just your final thought.
Final thoughts. Yeah. So is it like what we do, or final thoughts like inspirational? What, like, give us a little more direction for that.
Or just what did you get out of it? What would you want to, like, if you were talking to somebody and say, gee, I was on this show and this is what I got out of it.
Perfect.
That kind of thing.
To me, my God, the resilience of all of us, the journeys, even, we got from, East Germany to Oklahoma and Brazil to Scotland, like even though we were in all parts of the world, there's common threads to our stories. It's like the humanity in us. We're having an election shortly, and there's a lot of division. And these stories are about connection, because we are more similar, and we have more journeys that we've taken on the same path than, so let's not get swept into the differences. I think it'd be really cool to stay in the, like the positivity, and we've all gone through stuff. And hello, Stephanie, I'm glad you're here watching us. So what did y'all take away? Mine was deep regard. This has been delightful. I'm like, I want to host you more. Let's play together more. So this is so good. Right.
Yeah, man. Well, anytime.
Anytime.
That's one of the things,
Okay.
If you want to be a host, or if we want to do this again, feel free. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Okay. So takeaways. What are you taking away, loves?
I think mine was just very like what you said. Our stories are so diverse, but there's so much crossover as well, and just so many relatable moments that you just wanted to kind of hug each other and just go, I know exactly how you felt. There was so much of that. But yeah, our stories are vastly different. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing them. It was just a joy.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Linzi. Who's next?
I'll go next.
Thank
you to be in such great company, inspiring company today. I have many stories that I can relate to here. What stood out for me as a common thread was the power of the human spirit to thrive, to find its way out of misalignments, out of the shit that starts with surviving, oddly, right, and ends with T for thriving. And that there is that inner voice, there is that inner knowing that is always there. And we are not alone, even in the moments when we might feel the most alone.
Beautiful. Oh, that's beautiful. Isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of that, because it was exactly that for me too, about the power, how everyone that spoke here really embraced their power, and went on this journey of healing and self-discovery. and bringing that out into the world, you know, really shining in that light. So it's really spectacular to be a part of that. And then to have, like, you know, the sharing of the stories. They say that when you do that, then the sorrows are halved and the joys are doubled. And that I really experienced here today, and I'm so grateful.
Who's next?
Yeah, well, there isn't almost that much more to say, but I'm really grateful to have been here and the connection between us. It's like it's this power of story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Therese, but I don't really know anybody else, and it doesn't feel like that. Like there is that sense. It's really, really powerful, and I think if people were to just take away one thing from what everyone's shared, is there is this moment where you just have to kind of take a leap and let go of trying to control it all, because there's always that step into the unknown. And if you see, like, well, usually you land on your feet, and it's usually better than what you can even imagine.
So good. So well said. Jennifer, wrapping it up, girl.
I think what I felt today was the beauty of vulnerability. We all come on, and while we are powerhouse women and we have powerhouse success stories today, we all walked a path to get there, and to be able to share that with ladies we've never met before, with an audience that we may never come across their path again. But we've laid a foundation for that connection, for somebody to reach out to any one of us to start rebuilding themselves.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. I'm so honored. You know, you all were literally hand selected when Barbara invited me. I'm like, ooh. And so I trust that Spirit brought us all together. And so I hope people that are listening are enjoying this. And Barbara, I'm going to throw it back to you. It's been delightful to be in your room today on the LinkedIn. So thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, ladies. This has been just absolutely a joy, because you know what, I truly believe that, like, we can do more together than we ever can on our own, and people want to know our stories. They want to know the stories, because it's in our, like, I think it was Linzi that said, it's in our stories that we hear bits of ourselves. And when we can know that we're not alone. And one of the things that I really want people to get away from this is celebrate who you are, not what you were, not what you think somebody else thinks you are. Celebrate who you are, and quit beating yourself up for the things that you don't think you are. Okay, everybody's giggling, because don't we do that? We beat ourselves for what we're not, rather than celebrating for those things that we are. And I just really hope that everyone really feels that every one of us today came through we're celebrating who we are now. We didn't start out that way, but we are becoming even more, and you can become who you need to be also. And if you need help with something, reach out to somebody that resonated with you. That's why the information is on the screen. Reach out, because there is no shame in reaching out for help and saying, hey, you know, this is how I'm feeling. But I know for myself, I was brought up to pick yourself up from your bootstraps and you go on. You don't tell anybody that you're having trouble, that you're having a problem. And then all of a sudden you can't do it anymore. So if that's you, please reach out. We're here. Any one of us are here. So just leave that with you. And absolutely, this is how you have this is the Redefining Success show. So if you want to be on this show and come and tell your story, please reach out to me. You can reach out to me on my LinkedIn page, Wellness Playroom, for the best version of you. So everybody, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.